Hello Rockhounds and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be learning all about sedimentary rocks, how they're made, and what they're used for. First I'd like to show you some examples of sedimentary rock. I have my rock collection here. Now not all of these are sedimentary rocks. Let's look at which ones are. The first one I wanted to show you is called bauxite. Bauxite is a sedimentary rock that is used to make aluminum cans. Sedimentary rocks can come in different lusters and textures. This particular one, bauxite, is very rough. You can see it has a very irregular, rough texture. It is a rock that has a very dull luster, and it has a brownish color throughout. The next example is the one right next door, and it's called coal. Coal is what powers, well, not as much anymore, but used to be counted upon to power our homes and heat our homes and our water in our houses. We don't use that so much anymore. It's natural gas now. But coal is brought from the ground, and it is used, it used to be used in locomotives as well. It's got a shiny luster to it. It is very rough and irregular, and it cuts very irregularly as well. Our next sedimentary rock is called Dolomite. Dolomite is used to make cement cinder blocks. You can see right here. Dolomite is quite beautiful, really pretty. It has a shiny luster to it, as you might be able to see in the video. It's got a beautiful pinky creamy color to it. It has some sparkle and some sheen in it. It's got quite a bright luster, and it's got, I wish you could feel it, it's got somewhat of a greasy texture to it. That's Dolomite. Our next example is Halite, and this one's quite interesting. Halite, as you can see, has a cubic structure. It's used to make salt, rock salt for the winter, and the same table salt you put on your food. And it's clear. It almost looks like an ice cube, doesn't it? It's got a beautiful shiny luster. It's got quite a smooth texture to it, and it's almost completely transparent. It is, I would say translucent. Our next example is sphalerite. Sphalerite is used to make pennies. Back when we used to use pennies, the zinc in sphalerite is what we put in our pennies, and this is sphalerite right here. Sphalerite is a dark gray charcoal color. You can see the light catching on the camera. It has another rough texture, and it's got the sparkle. It's got quite a metallic sort of sparkle to it, but it's got a dull luster otherwise, and very rough in texture. And our last metamorphic rock is a stinker. It's sulfur, and as we talked about in class, the sulfur is used in fireworks. They contain sulfur, but it's also put into natural gas as a safety mechanism, because natural gas has no odor, no taste, and it can't be seen. So we don't want to have a gas leak and not know about it. So as a safety precaution, they put stinky sulfur gas into the gas, so that if you have a gas leak and you smell the rotten egg smell of sulfur, you'll know you've got a gas leak. Now, sulfur is bright yellow, very cool color. It's got a somewhat of a chalky, greasy texture to it, and it's got a rough texture, and it's definitely got a brighter luster, and it cuts irregularly, and that's sulfur. The rest of these belong to different types of rocks, and we'll talk about those in another video. Now, shall we get to making our sedimentary rock? What you're going to need to make this sedimentary rock experiment happen is a clear jar with a lid. That's going to become important later. And you can use, it doesn't have to be a mason jar like this. You can use, heck, you could use a water bottle if you wanted. It just needs to be clear so you can see it, and it needs to have a lid. You're also going to need some beans. Any kind of beans will do. These are dried, obviously. And you can use kidney beans, lima beans, lava beans, doesn't matter. It's more about the size because these are going to represent our rocks in our experiment when we're building our sedimentary rock. The next thing you're going to need is some rice. I've got brown rice here. These are to represent the smaller fragments of rocks, the tiny, tiny pebbles, pieces of rock or shell that's going to be used to make our rock. And finally, something you probably all have in the kitchen, flour. And the flour is going to be used to represent the salt or silt in our sedimentary rock experience. The final ingredient we need to put it all together is water, because we know that sedimentary rock, unless it's volcanic tuff, is made in water. Let's get making our sedimentary rock. The first thing you're going to do is start to build your layers, because we know that sedimentary rock is made of layers or strata. The first thing we're going to add is our big rocks, our beans in this example. We're going to put them right into our jar. You can see there, I don't know, about a quarter maybe to a third of the jar filled with the beans. And these represent our big rocks. Next, we're going to add our small rocks or pebbles or our rock fragments and shell bits, our rice in this example, and we're going to pour that right on top. Can you see? Our big ones at the bottom and our small on the top. And finally, we're going to add our salt. Our sand, which is our flour. It's going to be our sand or our silt in this experiment. This might get a little messy, but that's okay. And although there's no heat involved, no danger in this experiment, it's always good to have an adult with you when you're doing things like this, just in case you run into trouble or need any help. All right. So we've got our beans, which are our large rocks. We've got our rice, which is our small rock fragments and pebbles and shell. And we've got our flour, which is our sand or our silt in the bottom of our riverbed or our ocean or our lake. Now we get to add some water. So we're going to pour our water right in on top. And go slowly, because you want to give the chance for the water to absorb. You can see it going down through the flour here. Just give it a minute. Don't pour it in too fast or it'll just overflow. You can you see the bubbles happening as it's sort of aerating down through the layers? And you can just add a little bit more as it saturates. And just keep adding more and more water until it completely saturates and you can't add any more water. Now, if you want, you can also put your lid on your jar and give it a shake. Now you know why we needed the lid. So you add your lid, make sure it's screwed on tight. You don't want to make a mess, and shake it up. Give it a good shake. Give it a good shake. Shake it all up. Now, look at that. Look at how much space I created here. So if you want, you can add more water to it. You're welcome to open it up and add some more water now that you've created some space. There you go. Then put the lid back on again and give it another good shake. Well, how does that look? Does that look like soup? Would you want to have that for lunch? I don't think so. But you can see already, can you see all our beans, our rocks, and our rice, our rock fragments, and of course our sand and silt. And make sure it's shook up really well. And then we wait. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to leave your jar with the lid on or off, doesn't matter, and let it settle. Just like we talked in class, this is going to settle. right down into layers, just like it would in a riverbed. The water will be on top and the larger items will float to the bottom, and we'll get that sedimentary layers that we want that make sedimentary rock. Now, in the real world, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of years to wait to build rock, but this will show us a good example. So let it sit and then come back and have a look at it later and see how your sedimentary rock shook out. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this experiment, and we'll see you again next time.